morning. Good morning. Can you guys hear me okay in the back? Well, I want to start the morning by telling a story. And this isn't my typical story. This is nonfiction. This is actually a reflection of a man named Warren Isley. He was visiting Costebel Beach, which is a beach on the shore of Spain, after a major storm. And I'll let it start there. The story is a star thrower. The doctor's visiting Costebel Beach, having just spent the entire night weathering this terrible storm. As he looks out his window, he sees a number of torches bouncing up and down, many fires along the shoreline about an hour before dawn. As the light begins to improve, he's then able to make out hundreds and hundreds of human figures crouching over, picking things up along the shoreline. And he begins to wonder. And being a scientist and curious by nature, he decides to investigate. As he gets closer, he begins to make out the objects on the beach. Upended timbers, conch shells, a pink-clawed crab encased in seaweed, laying powerlessly, some close to death, sprawling where the waves had tossed them. Long-limbed starfish were strewn everywhere, as though the night had showered them down. A small octopus, its dark-lensed eyes bleared with sand, gazing up from a ragged bundle of tentacles. Then there were the signs of the professional shellers, consumed by a kind of greedy madness that sweeps over the competing collectors. After a storm like this one, you find them hurrying along with bundles of gathered starfish, or clutching bags of living shells to be burnt and cooked and sold at the local resorts. As the sun began to brighten and the doctor found himself further down the beach, he noticed an amazing, gigantic rainbow. At the foot of the rainbow, he can barely make out this tiny figure, a human figure. In fact, when he recalled the story, he says the man seemed to be standing within the rainbow and was looking down at something in the sand. As he watched, the figure stopped and tossed whatever it was out beyond the breaking waves. As the doctor approached him, he realized that this crazy old man was looking down into a pool of water in which sat a trapped starfish. Then this mysterious fellow, he reaches into the pool, grabs the starfish firmly but gently, and threw it out beyond the waves. "It may live," he said, "if the offshore pull is strong enough. You see, to save the starfish, one has to throw it beyond the breakers." The doctor then asks, "Do you collect shells?" The stranger replies softly, "Only like this, and only for the living. The stars." Then looking directly into the doctor's eyes, he says, "Throw well. One can help." The doctor then replied, "I do not collect, neither the living nor the dead. I gave up a long time ago. Death is the only successful collector." With these words, he turns and walks away. That night, as the doctor lie in bed, processing the day's events, something amazing begins to happen. It starts when he recollects the old man, the one he now called the star thrower. How crazy is this guy? How crazy is he to think that saving one starfish on a beach where thousands and thousands of them dying, how is that going to make a difference? Why spend an entire day saving a few starfish? What's the use? What's the purpose? What's his motivation? There were hundreds of people around him taking advantage of these washed up creatures. I mean, it was essentially like finding money lying on the beach. And then the shift happened. And he says to himself, yet one person let mercy win over greed. One strong hand reached down to save the weak. He then begins to think about those before him. His mother, who cared for him, his father, his grandparents, who did everything they could to help him survive. It's then that the doctor begins to realize how much help he has received throughout his life. And that, in fact, he has actually been sustained by the love of others. And soon, he realizes that somehow he has become inwardly focused. He has become concerned solely for his own survival and his own enrichment. Over time, he had become myopic, meaning he could only see how the world affected him. He was interpreting life through his own agenda, and this was making him unable to recognize the plight of others. Maybe it was a rainbow, maybe it was a star thrower when he looked into his eyes, maybe it was when he recognized those who picked him up and lifted him just a little to a better life. With this new realization, he rose from his bed and went out to find the star thrower. And as he was before, he found the star thrower at the foot of a rainbow. As he approached him, the doctor did what he had once dismissed as crazy. He reached down, silently picked up a starfish, and threw it well beyond the breaking waves. He spoke only once. I understand. Call me a star thrower. I first heard this story in 2005. I was in a small chapel in Wyalusing, Pennsylvania. And since that moment, Lauren Isley's The Star Thrower is a story that I often find myself thinking about. When asked recently to speak, I wanted to share it, or at least my interpretation of it, and some of my thoughts with you all. This is where I need you guys to give me a little bit of room as I try to explain some of the symbolism that I've drawn from the story. First, the beach. To me, the beach represents the commotion, the chaos, the greed, the craziness, the only the strong survive feeling we sometimes get from the world that we all live in. Might remind you guys of the dance last weekend. It's supposed to be funny. Second, the starfish. The powerless, defenseless, at the mercy of those around us, trying to find its way among the cold, heartless world. Who can't relate to that? If you're anything like me, you've had those moments of self-doubt, those moments when you've kind of felt like that starfish. And finally, the star thrower. To me, the star thrower symbolizes hope, mercy. The star thrower is that ray of light in an otherwise dark moment. The star thrower is the strong hand that picks you up when you've fallen. I believe there are times when each of us can relate to that starfish, vulnerable, disheartened, fragile. But I also believe that each one of us has the power to be a star thrower. A person who in a moment of strength reaches out to help someone in maybe their moment of weakness. Think of the star throwers in your life. Who has picked you up? Even just a little bit, a kind word, encouragement, a pat on the back. Someone who's listened to you. Someone's made you feel good about who you are, about what you're doing. To me, the next logical step from there is then to say, okay, how do I become a star thrower? How can I be a star thrower? Well, I'd offer this. All you have to do is turn your focus outward just a little bit. Work a little bit harder to recognize the plight of others. And if and when you see a starfish, reach down, pick him or her up with a shared hope, a kind word, whatever it is, and do your best to throw it over the breakers. When you do this, that's when you become something bigger than yourself. That's when we become a community in the greatest sense of the word. And then, like the doctor, you'll understand, and you'll be able to call yourself a star thrower. Thanks, guys.